The journey of transformation requires us as creatives. Why do I focus on creatives? Obviously, I'm more creative, but one of the things that I've learned as a creative is that creatives are susceptible to be controlled by their emotions. And why is that important? It's important for a few reasons. One, because we are the ones who are translating our story from our emotions, right? You think about a really great story, how it affects you. You've been able to translate that story from the ether, from your imagination. You've put emotions to it. If it's a particular story that resonates with you personally, it's coming from a really deep place. And you've had to be able to understand how to translate that story from your emotions and bring it into the world from an authentic place. That's not an easy thing to do. Everybody can't do that. And so from a creative point of view and the creator's point of view, you've had to position yourself in such a way that you have to make yourself vulnerable. And if you make yourself vulnerable, then there's a part of you that's going to be open for criticism. That makes us susceptible. That makes us more sensitive to criticism, right? And this is going to become relevant as we go through this discussion, because what needs to happen is you need to figure out what's the most important thing for you to achieve, right? Where is it that you're going? What is it that you're trying to get to? And the obvious answer we all come to is success, right? I want to be successful. I want to go through this next 5 to 10 years of my life and I want to create something meaningful, something powerful. The problem that we all face as creatives, building business, building brands, telling these new stories, is that it's not as easy as we think. So resilience has to become part of the story. And resilience isn't something that's easily obtained. For instance, there's the story, if you want courage, right, you have to do courageous things, right? And so it's this whole idea that to become resilient, you have to do things that make you resilient. But the whole point of people who are looking for success and who are not being resilient, right? They're not doing the hard work that makes them resilient to the stresses and the struggles and the conditions of success. So where am I going with all this? The goal that people have around success, I think, is misplaced. People say, I want to be successful. First of all, they don't define in detail what that actually means. They're just in this transition period of their life and they don't like where they've been, or where they've been isn't working anymore. And so they have to now transition into this new space. We're all going through it. You look around on the news anywhere in the world right now and you see massive change, you see massive upheaval, you see massive disruption, and we're all freaking out. Nobody has the right answer. And because nobody has the right answer, we're talking to our friends, we're having these discussions, we're watching the news, we're reading blogs, we're listening to podcasts, and we're trying to find the truth. And the truth tells us the truth, that we want the truth so it makes us feel comfortable. We want the truth so it stops us from making a mistake. We want the truth so it helps us feel like, we're doing the right thing. This is the first problem. First of all, there isn't a right thing to do. There isn't an objective truth that solves all of the problems. We are in no man's land right now. No matter what story we tell ourselves, we are in no man's land right now, and it doesn't feel good. We are uncomfortable. We're on the brink of collapse, of annihilation, of fear, of doom, and all the negativity that's going on in the press. We are transfixed to it. We're like that fly buzzing around the light bulb, right? And we're just transfixed to it. We can't take our eyes off of it. And in this distraction, we're using this distraction to subdue these feelings of uncertainty, because we're not certain of what to do next. And so we think success is a great destination. It sounds great. Well, I'll go for success, and I'll dream about living in this new house, buying this new car, having all this money, going on a holiday. And I'll flick through Instagram and it will give me an idea of what success looks like. But the problem with that is we have we have swapped we have swapped success for the person who can get success. We have looked at this whole idea of what success is as a tool to distract us from doing the work. You know, work with me here, work with me, right? Think about it. How many people do you know who set these goals and never achieve them? And but they keep setting these goals, and so they're blinded by this whole attitude, this mindset that success is going to solve all the problems, right? And so they keep going for success, but it actually is a distraction, because the real work is the goal that you should be setting. And the reason why you should be setting a goal is so that you can become the person who can create the conditions for success. Because success isn't what anybody thinks it is. You know, we all think that success, like I said, is that weekend on the yacht, right? Drinking champagne or on the beach with your feet up on the deck chair with beach service, the laptop lifestyle, sitting on, you know, this veranda looking out at the ocean, working from your laptop, or driving through the south of France in your open top Bugatti, and we think that this is success. And for some of us it is. But the what we miss is that what's actually going on that creates that success, or what's actually happening that creates that experience for somebody to have those outcomes. And the detail that's missing on social media, the detail that's missing on all the blogs, the detail that's missing in a lot of the books that we're reading is resilience, is the part where people are giving up because they don't want to feel like a failure. They don't want to feel anxious. They don't want to feel like they're going to make a mistake. They don't want to live in that uncomfortable space because it doesn't look cool. If you said you were going for success, but you look stressed every day, right? You look worried and anxious every day. And yet you said you want to go for success, right? And the mistake that we make is that we mistaken success for this beach life, the Bugatti in the south of France, the laptop lifestyle. Those are symptoms of the person who can go through a state of being uncomfortable, of uncertain, and use resilience as the tool to create the mindset. And here's where the goal is. This is what the goal really is. The goal isn't to be obtained. It's for you to become the person who can obtain the goal. And part of the person who can obtain the goal is the person who can deal with the level of stress. Because success is stress. Anxiety is success. The problem solving is success. These are all the symptoms. These are all the results that once you accomplish them, on the other side is the experience that everyone's calling success. This is why most people, when they experience that feeling of life being so uncomfortable, oh, it's not what I thought it would be. Of course, it's not what you thought it would be. Because the people that you're following online, they haven't achieved it either. They just want you to follow them so their numbers go up so they can make some revenue off of their social media. So, when did you decide that success was the destination instead of becoming the person who could get the goal? When was that decision made? And when you really think about that, it changes the dynamics. It changes the way that you are thinking, believing. And some of you are like, "What's this? This isn't what I tuned in for. I wanted to hear about success." the reality that we're all experiencing right now is we're all distracted and we're all looking for some way to ease the distraction, the feeling of being uncomfortable. And it's understandable. We all wanna feel secure in a world that's insecure. But the beliefs and the programs and the habits that we have are not based on what's actually happening. So we want to just create some clarity around what it is that we're doing. The fear, the uncertainty that keeps us going up to the edge. This is what I'm talking about. This is why so a lot of people, they go up to the edge of success. They go to the very their very limits, their very barriers of what they're capable of, and they feel this dread, they feel this stress and this anxiety of being uncomfortable, and then they recoil. That is success. That's what you need to overcome. I'm in my recording studio. Every day I'm in here. Every day I'm making music. Every day it doesn't go right. Right? Every day is like a mini failure. Every day there's so many mistakes. I'm trying this formula with this formula. I'm trying this bass with this sound, with these strings, with these pads, with these drums. And it's a combination of trying and trial and error, trial and error, trial and error. One thing goes into another thing. If you're a designer, if you're a creative, you know what I'm talking about. We try different combinations all day, every day. You have a day when all you're doing all day is fixing problems. But we don't call it a problem. I don't call it a problem when I'm in the studio. I don't call it a mistake. I don't think there's anything wrong. I just know it's a process that I need to go through to get to a finished song. Right? This creates the understanding of what success is. Even when, even listen, we've all done this. Who's got a goal for something that you want and you worked hard for it? 6 months, a year, maybe a year and a half, and you finally got this thing. What was the feeling like? There may have been like a little bit of excitement. Yay, I did it. And then you're like looking around, like, is that it? Is that all there is? And then, you might go out for a celebration, and then the next day, you're back, square one. Let's start again, right? So this thing that we've got that we think about of success is not a lasting feeling. What do we all talk about? What do we always talk about? The process. We talk about the process more than the actual end result. That gives us some kind of satisfaction, but the process in itself lasts longer. If you think about where you are today, think about all the processes that you did that stacked on each other that you use as experience in this moment for whatever thing that you're doing. And equally, if you're a person who continually meets that obstacle and recoils, you're practicing for the next time when you meet the obstacle, how you're going to recoil. See, we get, we get what we practice all the time. We become who we practice all the time, right? And so for us as creatives, we need to get good at understanding two many things, but the core of this is understanding that we want to be good at understanding our own processes, our own habits, and our own limitations, and to know that once we hit what we think is our limitation, it actually isn't. There is more. And we'll dive a little bit more into this in a minute. So when things go wrong for me in the studio, it's not going wrong in the sense that, oh, I'm a failure. This isn't working. I'll scrap it. and I'll go and do another job. No, I recognize as part of the process of what I'm doing, I need to be more resilient. I need to be more, creative. I need to be more, you know, uh, uh, um, uh, open-minded. I need to be more free thinking. I know, and this is what we all know. We've all had a problem and an obstacle that we finally figured out a solution for. And so this is the same thing, what I'm suggesting. And remember how I framed it in the beginning. If you're a creator, you're creative, and you're more sensitive to the criticism, you're more sensitive to these feelings of fear, mistakes, blame, shame, and guilt, you need to be more aware of how you're going to feel once you meet these obstacles, because you're the one who's going to be with the self-talk more than everybody else. This is just training 101, right? This is training 101. This is understanding that there is something beyond what we're calling success. There is something beyond where we're heading towards as a creator, but you have to be willing to go through this feeling that feels uncomfortable. You have to be willing to go through this feeling that feels uncertain. You have the power and the capability to do that, but because you keep meeting yourself on the rim of your existence, your existing capabilities, you think you can't go through it. We spoke about this on the last session, but just because it feels like you don't want to go to that next stage, there is nothing there saying you can't do it. Right? Just because your mind is showing you all these pictures that don't feel great, it doesn't mean that you're not capable of doing it. Just because you've struggled and had problems going there in the past, it doesn't mean that you can have struggle and problems going there in the future. Right? Your past does not dictate your future. So what's going on? Learning. That's what's going on. Mistakes we could call learning. Again, let's use the studio, my studio as an analogy. When I'm here and I can't figure out how to do this next thing, I'm trying as many different things as I can to solve the problem. I'll try some old tricks. I'll do some research and figure out what some other people are doing. And then I'll maybe have to go away and go for a walk. And then an idea will come to me. And I'll be like, let me go and try that idea. Right? And then that is the idea that loosens it up a little bit. Because one of the key things in what we're trying to achieve as creatives moving forward is momentum. Momentum solves a lot of problems. It stops us overthinking. When you're in your creative self, you're in your creative space, what are we doing? I'm trying to get it right. I'm trying to make it perfect. How's that going? Right? We all know what that's like. The flow solves a lot of problems. The flow changes the habits. The flow changes the patterns. The flow makes us not overthink and keeps us in forward motion. Right? When we're in that space, we're just excited. We got clarity. We got certainty. We're not overthinking. We're not judging. We're just moving forward. Right? When you think about it, what would you do differently if you were allowed to make mistakes? Think of it. Think of it. Think of it. If you change the word mistakes to learning, what would you do? You know, I learned this trick a long time ago. I stopped calling it mistakes. I just called it learning. When I made that simple distinction, right? I just changed those two words around. I changed it from mistake to learning. All of a sudden, I was like, yeah, this is fun. I can learn. Of course I can learn this. And for me, it was really challenging, really difficult, you know, finishing certain projects, learning new business ideas, building new businesses, taking on new challenges, and becoming more self-sufficient, becoming more, having a bigger idea of the vision that I want to accomplish. Building this coaching brand was a challenge for me. But when I started to think about it, it was like, well, what are you learning from all of this? It's like, oh. So think about yourself. If you didn't call it a mistake, what would you try to do? If you're in transition in your career and you were saying that you're stuck, the world shifted, the old frames aren't working anymore, all the old doors are shut in, everybody's hunkering down, right? And you're trying all your old moves, but they're not working. They don't work anymore. These old moves, these old things that used to work back in the day, now they're not having the same effect, right? What is going on in your mind? You're thinking, what are you thinking? This isn't working. Uh, I'm blaming myself. Yeah, you understand the language that's been used to describe this experience, and it's not positive. And when we go into those downward spirals, what are we thinking about ourselves? I'm a, this isn't, they will think, right? And so these tools, those phrases aren't useful for motivation and for keeping your energy high. The reframing is useful because it actually gives you more clarity, motivation, and more certainty to to take the next steps that you might want to take that's going to lead you somewhere new. And this is about putting yourself in the best possible opportunities to be seen, to be recognized, to meet new people as this new version of yourself. Because what most people are mistaken in this transition that we're going through is the old version of yourself is going to work in the new space. It is not. And part of the resistance that most creators are having is that the old self is trying to move into the new world without doing any work, without doing any changes, without disrupting the old self. Will it work before? It'll work in the future? No, it won't. And if you were honest with yourself, you could look back at all the times that you grew throughout your life. How did you change? What did you have to change? Did you have to move? You broke up a relationship. You had to invest in yourself. You had to go back to college. You had to be around different people. You had to try different things. You had to notice opportunities. You were in certain new places where other people were doing new things, and so it wasn't the same. And this isn't the same. There's a transition that we're going through right now as creators and as a planetary, on the planet, that's requiring every level of this society to change. That must be obvious to all of us right now. The old world is in free fall. It's being disrupted, and the clear disruptor at the moment is AI, but that's just the visible layer. The other disruptor is what we're accepting, and what we're believing, what we're thinking, what we're hoping for, and we're all using an outdated model. It's time to update to the new model, to the new structure, to the new world, to where this new place is telling us to go. And it's not the same place. It's not the same place, it's not the same world, it's not the same opportunities. But the skill that's required, you do have. And if you're over 40 and you listen to this, you have 40 years of in-depth knowledge that most people won't ever have, right? If they're younger than you, that is. And so you do have the advantage. The skill now is figuring out how you use that advantage to your advantage. So, what would you do if you change the word from mistake to learning? So, what would you be open to learn about yourself? What would you be open to? What steps would you be open to take to go to make this next phase work? Because I know I've been I've been doing this coaching for a while now, so I pretty much know the signals when I talk to creatives. And there is this idea that they have about who they want to become, but they're pushing it down and they're saying, nah, that's not going to work. People aren't going to like it. People won't accept me when I become this. And that language is based in fear. That language is based in the old world. Let me tell you something. The universe doesn't give you an idea that it doesn't know you're capable of achieving. This whole conversation is predicated on you actually do know what you want, but because of the resistance and that feeling of that is so uncomfortable that you can't bear it, is bearing down on you, and it's bringing up these uncomfortable feelings, uncomfortable emotions, these uncomfortable images, and it's playing these mini movies in your mind about the worst possible scenario. You don't attempt it. Here's the thing. Every morning for the last 3 months, 4 months, I've been getting up at 6 o'clock in the morning and going running. Every day I go running, there's a moment where I think I'm going to collapse. My lungs are going to explode. My legs are going to fall off. And I tell myself, this is it. I can't go any further. Right. And I keep on running. And I feel this, all these images come up, these warning signs. It's like I'm about to panic. My heart starts beating even harder. I get this stiffness in my chest, and I just feel like I can feel myself, but my body's telling me to stop. I just keep going, and the reason I just keep going is because yesterday, when I felt the same thing, and I just kept going, I didn't die. Right? Nothing happened. I kept running. I was out of breath, but nothing happened. Nothing terrible like the story that was going on in my mind. My lungs didn't explode. My legs didn't fall off. Right? I was breathing a bit heavy, but nothing happened. And so this story that we keep telling ourselves, this worst possible thing that's going to happen, it doesn't happen. And this isn't to diminish any of the thoughts and the fears that we have. It's just to put it into context that I'm just running and I'm having these stresses and anxieties about running, but it also translates to the barriers that I'm putting up against myself about going to that next level. What we're trying to do is we're trying to expand ourselves so that we can accomplish more, but we can actually see more, be more, right? The stress and anxiety lives in our nervous system. And when your nervous system isn't regulated by regular exercise, meditation, visualization, stretching, goal setting, right? All of these activities help our nervous system release some of the old stress and baggage because that's where it's stored. And when you set a big goal and you release and you stretch the mind, you stretch the nervous system, the energy has to go somewhere. Right? That's just the one of the laws of the universe. Energy can't be created or destroyed. It can only be transmuted into something else. So think about the energy that's being used to go through this mental challenge. Right? That energy is blocked up in the patterns and the habits of what we're resisting. When you go through that, and we've all done this, we've had a challenge, we thought we couldn't do it, we got through the challenge. How did you feel on the other side? You were like elated, right? You were like elated. I did a talk for this company, this event called the Do Lectures about 3 years ago. And when they asked me to do it, I was like, yeah, I'll do it. No problem. I've been doing talks and workshops, so I thought, yeah, let's do this. This would be great. And then it came closer to the time actually doing it. And I thought, let me just check out what this Do Lectures is. I just said yes, so it didn't really check it out. And and I started to do some research on it, and all of a sudden I started to realize this is a serious thing, dude, that you've said yes to. You haven't really thought through this, have you? So I started to put together my talk. I was going to do it anyway, but I really started in earnest to put together my talk, I started to look at what people were doing on there. I was like, whoa, this is like, this is a great opportunity. This is some serious people here, some great creatives. And so I put together my talk and I was like, yeah, I'm going to go there. I'm going to do it. And then I went there and I saw what was actually going on. Once I got there, I was like, I am not prepared for this. I was completely not ready for it, because once I got there and I heard the speakers, I was like, my talk's completely not right. I spent the next, 7 or 8 hours completely rewriting the talk. Right, so I get there with a talk and I listened to the first couple of speakers and I realized my talk's not quite right. And so for the next 7 hours, because I'm the first speaker on the next day, right? I rewrite the whole class, the whole talk, sorry. And I am like, heartbeat and everything. And if you've done a talk, that's really, really important. And I was petrified. I was scared. And I, you know, we get into the morning and we get there and they say, yeah, it's Kay. He's going to do his talk. This DJ Cross, boom. And I get up there and I say my first 4 or 5 lines. I'm in mode. I'm in mode. I just go into mode. Right? This is what I do. This is what I've practiced over the years. I went into mode. This is the same mode I go to when I'm DJing, when I'm in the mode when I'm making music. I just went into mode. It just was like, boom. And before I'd even sort of realized it, the time was up and I hadn't even finished. And they allowed me to have almost another 5, 6 minutes. And people were shouting from the audience, finish the talk. And I didn't even get to the slides. He goes, what's on the slide? And it was one of the best talks I've ever done. And when I finished that talk, I felt so good. For like 2 or 3 days, I was just floating on air. And it was this feeling of accomplishment, and more than accomplishment as well, a feeling of certainty that I could do it. That despite the challenge, I was capable of it. Despite the fear that was crushing, that I'd made a mistake, that I was going to be a failure, that all that noise, I'd accomplished it. I'd got through it, and I came out the other side feeling magnificent, feeling great. So what I'm saying to you, creators out there, there's a wall that you have created, because the wall that I created was in my own mind. There was nobody there telling me that I couldn't do it. There was no wall that I had to climb over. It was just a stage and people in the audience who wanted to hear my story, who wanted to learn and understand how I changed. What did I do? What could they glean from my experience? And it's the same thing for you. There are people out there who want to see you. They want to see you succeed. They want to know how you did it. And it doesn't matter what industry you're in as a creative. It doesn't matter what you're doing. People say, yeah, I'm just a DJ, I'm a producer, or I do this, or I do. It doesn't matter. What you need to understand is you're a human being having a human experience. And other people want to hear what your experience is being translated through your art. That's the story. I'm a music producer. I'm in the entertainment industry, but I'm here talking to you guys. And tomorrow I'll be doing a workshop. Yesterday I was finishing a track. The weekend I'll be doing some. What's the commonality in all of that? Me on a journey, transitioning through this experience and telling other people about the story and the journey and how they can transition through the story. Why? Because that's how I'm learning. I'm reading books on other people who are going through these stories, going through these journeys. Have you ever read a book about somebody who was telling their story? What's the first chapter about in those books? In the films that we see, in the documentaries that we see, what's the first chapter in the story about? the problem. What's the rest of the book about? How they overcome the problem. Success is overcoming the problem. Success is figuring out, how do I get through this feeling of resilience? Sorry, this feeling of it's uncomfortable. This feeling that I'm going to be a failure. This feeling that it's a mistake. This feeling that I can't accomplish it. That's the feeling. So what uncomfortable feeling are you using as a reason to stop? That is an actual sign that you're stretching. Think about this. When you set a goal, the mere fact that you set a goal creates the problem. Think about it. If you didn't set the goal, you wouldn't have the problem because you wouldn't be going anywhere. I'm going to London tomorrow. That's the goal. I go to catch the train's not there. I may have missed it. It may be delayed. That's the problem. There's no problem if I stay at home. There's no goal, right? The goal sets out the parameters for your experience. This is why success in itself is almost meaningless, right? Because once you say to yourself, and this is why sometimes you may have heard the term BHAG, big, hairy, audacious goal, right? The reason why you want to have a BHAG is because it will expose all your weaknesses. People say, no, don't set a goal, don't set a huge goal, set a realistic goal. A realistic goal doesn't stretch you. Why do you need to be stretched? Well, why do the activity in the first place? If you're just going to do what you normally do that. And be happy. Don't complain that life isn't changing for you. Don't complain that you're not making any progress. Don't complain that other people are further down the road than you. You're just doing what you normally do. You set a goal to be average, and so enjoy being average. But if you are unhappy with where you are, if you've completely used up the runway of your experience up until now, and you're feeling unfulfilled, that's because you haven't created a dream or a vision for yourself that's way beyond what you're achieving right now. Think about that. If what you're doing right now is not fulfilling and you don't have a bigger vision, you're not going anywhere. You're not making any progress. The first thing for human beings to feel fulfilled is to be making progress. When we don't make progress, we don't feel fulfilled. We're not doing anything. You may feel like the stress and anxiety of going for a big goal is going to be a problem. But trust me, the stress and anxiety of not going for a big goal will be a problem in the future. People say, no, it's a risk. It's a risk if you don't. It's a risk to choose the same thing over and over again, thinking that somehow the world's going to be different if you keep doing the same thing over and over again. Like, really think about that. You do the same thing every day, over and over again, and you think somehow one of these days it's going to be different. It's going to lead to something else. You're doing the same thing every day. What's the goal? What's the vision? Where do you see yourself in 5 or 6 years? And how do you do it? How do you actually get to it? What are the stages that you're doing that's going to push yourself beyond it? What's the vision every day? Am I going to keep doing the same thing, or am I going to stretch myself? Am I going to do 100 laps today? Am I going to do 30 laps today? Am I going to make 10 tunes today? The goal dictates the work. The work is stretching yourself. Stretching yourself is developing yourself. Developing yourself is learning new skills. Learning new skills is keeping your mind active on solving loads of mini problems. And guess what? You do that for 12 months, you'll be unrecognizable. You'll make so much progress. Just an hour a day of what I just suggested will completely change who you are in less than 12 months. 1 hour a day, 52 weeks. Who could you become? 2 hours a week, 52 weeks. Who could you become? One day, who could you become? See, the work in itself is the challenge. Carving out the time is the challenge. But the vision to see yourself better than you are today will motivate you to do the work. When there is no clear why, because you're not going to just put yourself in discomfort without a clear why. Without the clarity of why you're doing it, it doesn't make any sense. You're just like, well, why am I putting myself through this discomfort every day? You know, I'm on a diet. Why am I eating lettuce every day? Right? Doesn't make any sense. Well, you haven't defined what the parameters are of what it is that you're going for. Why do you need to eat lettuce every day? Well, you'd be healthier if you haven't got a proper diet. If you set a stretch goal, if you have a vision that's so big, that's so when you think about it, it just makes you scared, right? Something will happen that's going to be unexpected, that's going to shock you and push you to develop yourself in a new way. Why is that important? Because let's go back to the very beginning of this conversation and of last week's conversation. We are in transition. We are in a new world. Right? Old rules don't apply. The new version of you is going to require different ways of thinking, different ways of believing, different ways of taking action. And to do that on a consistent basis, you're going to have to put yourself in a state where it's uncomfortable for a period of time until the results start to show themselves. And resilience is a huge part of that. So who has turned their back on the pursuit of this? And are you still going anyway? So think about that. So who has turned their back? Who has turned their back on you while you were pursuing it? So think, as creatives, it's a lonely job. When we do this work, I know firsthand experience. I'll tell you a story. I grew up in a council estate. It's a place called Norwest in Bristol. I got into music, and I felt like the odd person anyway. But when I started to make music, there wasn't hardly any people around me making music. Me and my brothers, a few other people, and immediately we're those geeky kids who make music. So we're already on that side. A couple of years later, I moved to an area in Bristol called St. Paul's, Montpellier. It's where all the geeky people on the other side, they are there. So I leave the neighborhood that I grew up in and I move to another neighborhood, which is basically more creatives. And now I'm in the sort of creative circle of DJs, of producers, people who are making music. It's a small group. It's not loads of people. It's a very small group. And there aren't, it's cool, it's kind of all right, but there aren't many people doing it. So you kind of feel a bit isolated. You know where I'm going with this, right? Fast forward a couple more years, we start a label, we go to a subset of music. First of all, I'm making this sort of Bristol music. It's a bit like hip hop, bit like downbeat, bit like trip hop. And now it's like we're experimenting with this sub genre of music called jungle techno, it was called at the time. There's hardly anybody in Bristol doing it. It was about 4 people I knew, 5 people. Every time you get super specific, every time you get super focused, every time you change and drill down into your goal, into your vision, less and less people understand what you're doing. And because less and less people understand what you're doing, more people, what they tend to do is they don't want to be separate from their people. So they turn their back on what it is that they're doing, and they do what everybody else does because that's what makes them feel comfortable. But they're not following their dream. And then you get the people who do follow their dream. Nobody else gets it. They end up pursuing it by themselves and end up to make the choice. Do I go down this road by myself? And if you say yes, it's a lonely road. And no one wants to be lonely, for the interim anyway. And so the question helps us try and understand, like, in another way, like, what are you prepared to do for your dream? Like, are you really going to follow it through? Are you really going to go through all of these stresses, these anxieties, these worries, these beliefs, these patterns, and these habits to get the dream life that you want to get? Right? Because when you really think about it, for you to get this experience the way that you want to get it is not going to make other people happy. Right? It's not. And we've all, as creatives, we've all been here before. We've had to make a decision. And today, it's becoming more and more clear we have to make another decision. And these decisions aren't popular. These decisions aren't comfortable. These decisions don't feel good. But they will determine the next stage of your life, the next stage of your experience. And again, this may be something that's holding you back. The decision that you have to make that's uncomfortable, that creates more of the uncertainty we talked about in the beginning. And so you're saying to yourself, yeah, I want this thing, but I don't want to do X to get it. I can see my dream, but it's going to require me to become X to get it. The price is too high. I'm not going to pay it. I don't want to do it. I don't want to spend too much time away from my people, my loved ones, my family. Do the Jeff Bezos experiment. When he started Amazon and he made a decision, he was working for a consultant company, and they sent him out to explore what this new thing called the internet was, and how selling on the internet was going to affect the world. He came back after 6 months or something like that and said, I've got this idea, and I want to leave to pursue it. And he did an experiment, a thought experiment. And the thought experiment was, imagine you're 80 years old and you didn't take the chance to create Amazon. How would you feel? That was his thought experiment. Your thought experiment is the same. You're 80 years old, and the decision that you're tackling now will define the rest of your life. What's your decision? Do you take it or not? And so only you can answer that. Only you have the ability to see how your life will turn out if you take those actions or not. Are you following your own vision? If you know my music, you know that's the title to one of my songs, right? Follow your vision. And yes, I did make that song because I was talking to people and telling them to follow their vision. I have been very fortunate in my experience, in my life, that I'll tell you a few stories. One story, but it's very powerful. It had 3 or 4 different sections to it. The first time that I followed my vision was when I was like about 19. I was in London and I had an opportunity to go to a recording studio. And I remember them opening the doors and I walked into the studio and I saw the lights. Literally, I saw the lights. And and when I saw those, I was like, ding, ding, ding. This is me. This is what I'm definitely going to be doing. Before that, 14 years old, I'm sat in my mum's house. Me and my brothers were watching the TV. My brother comes in with this VHS tape, gives us this tape, says, watch that. I watched this tape. It's called Wild Style. I watched it. It completely blew my mind. And I said, ding, 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 ding. That's me. I knew exactly what I was going to do for the rest of my life. I'm going to be in hip hop. Then it was, I'm going to be a producer. right? And then when we started Full Cycle, we were four of us, me, Ronnie, Di, and Sub, at Glastonbury. We were sat on this hill and we were watching sunset, and we just kind of looked at each other and we were like, yeah, this is going to be a thing. And so I've had these moments in my life where I knew without a shadow of a doubt that this is the thing that I'm going to do. I'm going to take this to wherever it takes me. I just followed the vision. It felt right. There was no doubt in my mind, right? It felt right. It felt like the absolute right thing to do. I'm getting emotional even thinking about it right now. And the thing why it's so powerful is because you know in yourself that this is the right thing for you to do. You know in yourself that, like, it doesn't matter what happens, you're going to follow it through. And for me, just knowing those feelings, staying true to those feelings, staying true to the story is worked out for me, right? And it hasn't been without problems, stresses, anxiety, and worries. There's never, it's never been an easy road. When I saw that film Wildstar, I had to figure out how to become a breakdancer. I had to figure out how to become a rapper. I had to figure out how to become a graffiti artist. And finally, I had to figure out how to become a DJ. You know, then we had to figure out how to get turntables. Then we had to figure out how to get a mixer. Then we had to figure out how to get speakers and an amp. And then we had to figure out how to work it and then learn how to mix. That took like 8 years to do all of that. And then my brother made a record. It was like, how do you make records? Right, well, you have to learn how to use the sampler. And then you learn to use the sampler. Then you learn to use Cubase, the sequencer. And then you learn to use the mixing desk. And then you learn to use your ears for the speakers. That took another 10 years. And then it's like, oh, let's start a record label. It's like, okay, how'd you do that? And so at every stage, there's challenges. Every stage there is things that there's, you know, it on hindsight, yeah, it's easy. Let's just start a label. Let's just do it. Yeah, of course it's easy, but actually doing it is stress, anxiety, worry, fear, mistakes, guilt, failure. What I say earlier sounds like a bit like success, doesn't it? Right? Look at the other side of all of those things. What have I been able to accomplish? If you know anything about my career, you know, I've been able to accomplish some pretty significant things. And I'm still going. I'm still motivated to keep on doing bigger and better things. And so there isn't a point where I've got success and I was like sat down and thinking, yeah, I'm done. They were great. Well, when they happened, they were exciting when they happened, but they just opened up my possibilities for me to do more. I used those skills to stack on top of other skills to open up other doors, to open up other experiences. And so let's take this thing full cycle, right? Let's take this thing full cycle. Let's go back to the beginning. When we're in transition, the only security is knowing that your abilities and your capabilities can be built on, and you can learn new things, and you can go to new levels, you can tell new stories, and you can change your beliefs, you can change your patterns. Is it going to be easy? No, of course not. Has anything in your life been easy? No, of course not. But is that any reason to shy away from it? Is that any reason to stop doing it? No. Why? Because you want to learn. You want to learn how to deal with that resistance. You want to learn how to deal with that obstacle. When you're driving down the road, you don't want to slow down every time you meet an obstacle. You just want to take the obstacles out of the way so you can carry on going fast. Okay? So, I just want to thank everybody for showing up. This is Adapt the Canvas. This is session 2, season 3. And this is for the creators. This is for the creators who are ready for transformation. This is for the creators who know that there's something next. They know that there is another version of themselves beyond where they are today. And you might not be clear about it. That's why we're doing this. If you want more clarity, you want more certainty, and you want a guide to take you through this, hit me up in the chat, book a call. We can do a 30-minute reorientation session, and we can figure out how I can support you for the next 6 months through these challenging times where you can grow. and achieve this next evolution of you as a creator. Thank you. I will see you all again next week. It's been fun, and I hope you have a great rest of your week. Take care.